What's up, everybody? Welcome to the How to Lead podcast, a conversation designed to help you develop yourself and those around you. My name's Adam, joined by Clay. Clay, we're going to talk today about burnout, right? It's surprising. You and I were texting a couple of weeks ago that with the How to Lead podcast, we have not discussed this topic before. So I don't know. There may be some longtime listeners that'll go, you guys did it at episode 33. You did a great one on it, but I went back and looked.
If you're that longtime listener that knows the database of the How to Lead podcast, come out of the woodworks. We need to know that you're here. We need that encouragement.
Yes, we do.
Can't imagine that person exists, but maybe so.
Yes. You know who I think it may be? And she's going to be embarrassed that I'm going to say this. It may be my mother-in-law. Chris is our most avid listener. So, hey, Chris, glad you're listening. Shout out.
Chris, this episode's for you.
Yes.
Have you ever felt burnt out, Chris?
So you and I were laughing before we hit record on this with burnout because we were trying to think of like a silly thing that we get burnt out on. And you and I both agree. I get burnt out on the cars I drive.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if I think it is burnout. Like I get so tired of it after about a year where I'm like, oh, this car's so boring. And it only is worse when I travel. I have this phenomenon that every single car I rent feels like the greatest car that Detroit has ever created. And I'm always like, I'm totally buying this car, man. And it is every brand, every model. I just think, oh, this would be so great. And you actually drive a car because of a rental, right?
I did it. Yeah, I'm not proud of it, Adam. I don't go around bragging about this, but 2016 probably, I rented a car to drive to a speaking engagement, and it was a Ford Explorer. And I ended up buying a Ford Explorer because I had such a good experience with it. And now anytime I pull up behind someone, I feel like they get nervous because it's the cars that a lot of cops drive. So I feel like I look like a off-duty police officer. Quick, hide your weed.
Yes, that is so funny. And so annoying because everybody slows down and like suddenly goes to the speed limit.
Yeah, exactly. So. I'm like, no, I'm great with it. Keep it going. I will say though, burnout is certainly, it's more than just a buzzword in the workspace. It's a sincere experience for a lot of high capacity leaders, but I do believe there is a way to respond to burnout with more than just guilting yourself for feeling it, or just gritting your way through it.
Yeah.
So I've been excited about this episode because we really are going to explore some of the things we lie to ourselves about, some of the myths, some of the things that we tell ourselves. That I feel in the middle of burnout. And the truth is, you might not actually be burned out. You might, there might be some other things that you can do instead of just rage quitting from your job or just buying an RV and going across America, which that may be your option. But I think we've got some better options for you today.
God, the Gen Xer in me loves the idea of rage quitting.
Me too.
It's just, gosh. And it sounds like a cover band for Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah,
is Rage Quit. They play.
They only play corporate work. They only play corporate work events. They're called Rage Quitting. That's great.
That is so good. All right. Well, this is a big deal. And again, we've talked about some episodes recently. I can go back in our recent database, and we've done some episodes on middle management. We've talked about some recent studies that are out there. If there is a demographic that seems to be struggling with this burnout, stressed out, worn out phenomenon, it is those stuck in the middle of an organization. A lot of times they're managing their boss's priorities, their team's priorities, another department's priorities, and you just lose your mind sometimes. And so, but what we want to do here is just go, hey, before we get to the burnout diagnosis, there may be some other things here. Or maybe another way to say it is that burnout is very complicated. There's a lot of things going on. It's not, you can't just do a simple blood test and just go, oh yeah, you've got a good case of the burnouts. And so we want to give you a couple of ways to explore this, 4 in particular, some other questions to think through. So we're going to kind of do this. It may not be burnout. It may really be, and then we'll give you 4 ideas there. So let's start with the first one here, Clay. It may not be burnout. You may just be exhausted. So talk about the difference there. What do you see as the difference between the two?
Well, I think burnout feels like failure. Burnout feels like, gosh, I did something wrong. I didn't handle work correctly. But oftentimes it is a sign of whether it's emotional or physical depletion, some kind of chronic fatigue, right?
Yep.
Where you're just emotionally exhausted, physically depleted. And I think the reality is it's not actually a failure if you can identify this. It's actually you can feel good about yourself that I've been
Yeah.
able to. I've been through a hard season. I've worked, this is a little bit like Michael Scott, what's your greatest weakness? It's that I just work too much, right? It might be that. It might be that you're such a hustler that you've gone through a really difficult season or a season where you were pulling double duty, handling somebody else's job plus your job. And high performing people often get exhausted because
Yep.
you're a high performer, right? So
Yep.
this is not, it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It just means that you are human and you may actually just be exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, I'm not trying to turn this episode into an Andrew Huberman podcast, okay, and get into the science of all of this. So let me just talk as an avid user of some new technology or just the way technology works with sleep and tracking sleep. And what I've started to notice with some different wearables for sleep tracking is that whole deal between deep sleep and REM sleep. When I look at those numbers and then look at the way I feel the next day, and I look at the number of hours that I slept and I look at the way I feel the next day, I hate to admit it, man, there's a connection. Now, is it a placebo effect because I see the numbers? I don't know. It may be. Again, that's where I'm not going to try to turn this into a big science-y podcast. But there's something about the exhaustion, too, that's like, listen, if you're consistently getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night over a long period of time, you're probably just tired. There's just your body's not functioning at its full capacity at that moment. It's just harder to process all the ups and downs. And so that's what comes to my mind as well, too. And it makes me think of my buddy John McGee, who, would talk about those days when, he had a bunch of doubts creeping in his mind or just not having a good day emotionally. I was like, what do you do in those days? He's like, I just go home and go to bed. I go to bed as soon as I walk in that door.
It's like dealing with a migraine. You're like, I
Yeah.
gotta be asleep.
And I was
It's the
like,
only way to handle
no, there's got to be another way to do it. And then it's like, no, that's usually it. If I can get a good night's sleep, I usually feel better the next day. So yeah, some of that plays into this, I think, as well.
So if I were sitting across the table from somebody who was saying, hey, I think I'm burned out, I would start with that, one of those stressed out forms that you might have to fill out at the doctor's office to identify your anxiety or your stress level, right? Have you recently moved? Have you recently had a child? Have you recently gotten married? Are you getting enough? Did you just get a new puppy, right? Are you getting enough sleep? I would start there before you go ahead and say, okay, I'm burnout and I need to change careers or I need to quit my job or I need to do something drastically different. I think getting a plan for what you do when your inner battery hits 5% is healthy for everyone.
That's right.
But at some point in your career, your inner battery is going to hit 5%. And this is really good for those of you who are not in that state right now. Go ahead and get the plan now. What are you going to do when it hits 5%? What advice would you give yourself? What advice would you hope somebody would give you in that moment to go, all right, when it gets to 5%, this is what I'm going to do. And so I think checking some of those significant life moments that cause us stress, and then also looking at some of those basic things that we do to keep ourselves in a healthy place, I think that's a really great place to start, really great place to look.
Yeah. And we're going to come back to that here in a moment. So let's talk about number 2. So, all right, it may not be burnout. It may just be you're bored, which is really interesting to say nowadays. I think about our grandparents, like what have they ever been accused of? I'm just so bored at work. But
they would have laughed at you.
They really would have. But Adam Grant, I think, put this in one of his recent books, maybe in the last 5 years. It may have been his book, Think Again. I can't remember. But he talked about bore-out. So burnout, we all know, that's kind of what we're talking about. But what he saw in his research is sometimes when you're so bored at work, you can have the same physical and emotional symptoms, which I thought was really insightful. And so it may just be boredom, right?
Yeah. This is a common thing. For people who love a mountain to climb. I was just having this conversation with a gentleman that I do some coaching with, and he's gone through, he started looking back and go, why am I feeling so much dissatisfaction at work? And then he started looking back over the past, he said he had like a couple of years where every couple of months he had a new mountain to climb. It was a new project at work. We needed some team adjustments. We had a big loss in a key position that we had to overcome. And he said over and over again, he started realizing, oh, I like having mountains to climb. Now I got to figure out what to do when I don't have one, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't always have one. And so sometimes I think this is really good to at least weigh that as an option, that maybe you're not just burnout, maybe you are just bored. One of the things I love about Working Genius, we've talked about Working Genius some on this, on the How to Lead podcast, but they do a great job talking about how burnout has more to do with the kind of work you're doing and less to do with the amount of work that you're doing.
That's
right?
Yeah.
And so you might be in a season where you're having to do a lot of work that just doesn't excite you, that doesn't get your motor cranked, right? That doesn't get you, that doesn't keep you feeling filled and fulfilled and thrilled at work. And so what do you do about that? If you want to know more about Working Genius, I would encourage you at least take the assessment. We've got a link that you can, we'll put it in the show notes, but it's workinggenius.me/how-to-lead, workinggenius.me/how-to-lead. If you're at an organization that has not circulated or taken Working Genius as a team, I would encourage you to do that. You can do that at that link, but you can also get certified to become a Working Genius certified trainer, which I've talked to numerous people at organizations who've done that for their team and found it really helpful. But that's really a way to figure out, okay, what kind of work do I love to do? And am I doing a lot of that right now? Or am I having to do a lot of work that is just making me feel dissatisfied, unfulfilled, doesn't get me jazzed at work?
Yeah. And listen, this is not about just rest, because that's a different thing. That goes in a little bit with the exhaustion. I mean, these are actual tasks that you like to do. I think of the book Flow and the researcher there that talked about this sense of flow where you just get lost in your work, where time seems to just pass so quickly, is one of the peak experiences we can have as a human. And what he found in researching that is it lives in that sacred ground between boredom and anxiety. So you're doing something that you feel challenged by, but not so challenged that you give up.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
It's really great. Yeah. And so this is not like, listen, I love sitting around watching Seinfeld reruns, but that is not the dream job. The dream job involves something productive where it feels like a challenge. And so, yeah, if we're sitting across having coffee with somebody and they're experiencing the burnout, this is another set of questions to go to of like, all right, tell me, what are you doing? What's on the to-do list? What's taking up your day?
Yep.
Is it too much of the wrong thing or too little of the right thing? So it may just be some boredom. And so, again, you can go Google Adam Grant and Burnout. There's some really interesting articles about that. And take Working Genius. It's fantastic.
And if you get distracted by looking at old Borat clips, you'll enjoy that as well. That might be what you need as well.
So good. Never expected a Borat reference on the How to Lead podcast. I love it. Okay, so it may not be burnout. This is the third one. You may just be good old-fashioned stressed out. I don't know, Clay, but there seems to be a lot going on in the world today. I just think about the weekend. We just went through, not just we like the Tarnos, but we as a world went through. I won't timestamp it. Because here's the deal. We're recording on a Monday. We could probably say this every Monday. Like, can you believe what happened this weekend? You know? So
economic instability, conflict in the Middle East, celebrities who are crashing out, doing wild things. Yeah, there's a lot going on in the world.
Yeah, there really is. And so stress is a real thing that a lot of us are dealing with, and that can have a lot of symptoms. So this is what I think of, like, this is a life thing that we bring to work. Sometimes it is more of like, I'm just kind of stressed. I like the list that you talked about in point 1 of, did you move? Do you have a significant change in the marriage? Do you have something going on in your family? Are some of these national events having a local impact on you? I think those are, again, some great things to think about. And it's more, the solution there is not so much go find a new job. It's just trying to learn how to manage some of that stress, which is becoming a real survival skill.
Yeah, because if you just bounce from job to job, or if you just bounce from burnout to, massive career change or whatever burnout might cause because of stress, you're going to constantly be bouncing. You're going to constantly be running. And the hope is to create a more sustainable pace, a more sustainable way, some sustainable rhythms, or at least some rhythms that protect your own emotional health, right? Emotional health starts with personal responsibility. So I would just encourage you to look at those, right? The list of what are the things I'm doing to protect my emotional health, my EQ. Do you have habits in your life that are fueling you? Are there some habits that you're experiencing that are draining you? Maybe it's you're looking at the news too much. Maybe you're looking at social media too much. Maybe you're talking to your your in-laws who are consumed with the news and the world ending too much, right? Maybe you need some habits that are really fueling you, because that's really what leading yourself is all about. It's about putting those habits in your life that create more strength, that create more clarity, so that you can experience a full tank again, right?
Yeah, and that's what I love what Kim Scott says about this in Radical Candor is in her brief section in there on this self-leadership. It's just like there is no one formula. It is find your recipe.
It's good.
Find yours. So Clay, what works for me with managing stress may not work for you. And listen, it's great. There's so many influencers out there right now talking about their routines and morning routines and how that's all great. Those are great to get good ideas, to go out there and try to manage the stress. But you just got to run some experiments and see what works for you.
That's great.
There's tons of studies, obviously, about sunlight and sleep and movement and eating. Those are all probably going to be some component of it.
Sure.
But how you do it, man, I don't care. Just go whatever. Just do something. All that stuff really helps. But again, I think that's a good one, because what we're really trying to do there is like there's that old quote from Albert Einstein that's like, if I had to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes defining the problem and then 5 minutes thinking about a solution.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of what we're getting at there, that the problem that's well defined is half solved. And so diving deep into what are some of the sources of the stress right now, there's something very powerful about labeling. So it's like, well, why would I label it? Why think about it? It's not going to change anything. Well, maybe, but there's something very powerful about calling it what it is. That gets you moving in the right direction. And so, again, it may be just you're blaming the wrong person there.
All right, the first one, you're not burned out. You're likely exhausted.
Yep.
Number two, you might not be burned out. You might just be bored. You might be bored out, or might be experiencing bore out. Number three, you're not burnt out. You're just stressed out. And then give us number four, Adam. This one is right in your wheelhouse.
There it is. Yes, it may be not burnout. You may just feel financially stuck. And here's where this is starting to pop up as I talk about we talk often about a fair amount of coaching that we do. One of my favorite questions to ask somebody after they have just been going on and on and on about how difficult work is and all the challenging relationships at work, I love to ask them, why have you not quit? Right? It's just one of those poke the bear, get to the heart of the matter really fast. I just want to know what their visceral reaction is to that. So I'm not trying to force them to quit. I just want to know why they haven't done it yet.
And what do people usually say? What are some common answers you get on why haven't I quit?
Because it's money. They have told themselves a story that they cannot make this amount of money anywhere else. And so I just go, okay, that's the real issue. You don't feel a sense of personal agency. You don't feel like you're in control of the situation. It's the quintessential, you feel stuck. And so we can throw a bunch of solutions out there to try to change the work situation, but until you feel like you are back, controlling your own destiny, so to speak, it's going to be really difficult to feel that hope that you're searching for right now, because you just feel stuck. So as weird as this may sound, it may not be that you're burnt out. You may just be financially in over your head right now, which then it may have nothing to do with work and everything to do with just getting your financial house in order a little bit, getting some debts paid down, getting a budget put together, just trying to figure out where's the cash going right now, maybe snipping a few expenses here or there to try to create some breathing room. I think there's something there with that.
Yeah, because you and I probably didn't experience the golden handcuffs as much as some people might have experienced in their career, right?
Right,
Where
right.
you feel like you got into a career, they started paying you more. You realize, oh, I can't change now because they're paying me too much.
That's right.
Are you familiar with the country artist Stephen Wilson Jr. right
I'm
now?
not. I'm
He's
not.
everywhere right now. I see him all over the place. He's going on a big tour with I think Hardy this summer, but he's kind of a he's not new necessarily. He's been at it for a while, but he just seems like kind of the artist that the artists are listening to these days. And
Okay.
his story, his personal story, was really interesting. He was always a songwriter, always a musician, but he was working at one of the big like Procter and Gamble, Kimberly Clark, one of these that makes a lot of products, and he was working in a lab there, and he had a boss who told him, "Hey, I can see what's going to happen. They're going to start paying you more money and you're going to get stuck here. And it's obvious that your passion is songwriting. And so you need to leave now before you get stuck." And he credits that boss as being that was the moment that helped him, because he did break away and now he's able to earn a living doing the very thing that he loves to do. So I would just encourage you, before you get stuck, before you get the golden handcuffs, or even if you are, some practical things that help me, figuring out how much savings do you have to be able to, if you didn't make any money, how long could you go, right? At least know that.
Yep.
So I knew for me, when I quit my job, I knew I had 3, 4, 5 months probably where if I made no money, I was going to be okay.
Yep.
Secondly, I would encourage you, figure out the very bottom line, the minimal thing that we could live on, right? If we had to cut everything off, here's how much I know I need to make. I know that's a real simple thing, but seeing that number written down was really freeing to me to go, oh, we could trim it way down if we had to. That's really good to know, right?
Yep.
So that was very helpful for me. And then at some point, I think you got to trust that when you take the leap to do your own thing or to start something new or put out the flag that says, this is what I do now, my opinion is you will have more business coming in than you think you will have. There's something powerful about just saying, hey, I want to let everybody in my network know this is now what I'm doing. When I did that, I had a few people that reached out to go, oh, I didn't know you're doing that now. Could you come and do that with our organization?
Yeah.
That was a little maddening to me, because I'm like, well, why didn't you say this 6 months ago? And the reason why they didn't is because they didn't know I was doing that. Now that they know, they're going, oh, I didn't know that's what you're doing. So I would really take advantage of that opportunity to say, hey, this is exactly what I'm going to do now. But I would just encourage you, if you feel financially stuck, there's some really basic things that you can do to get that agency back. It might not just be burnout. It might just mean that there's some healthy financial practices to put in place.
Yeah. That's good. Well, Clay, again, I think this is a helpful conversation, that you may just be exhausted, you may be bored, you may be stressed, or you may be financially stuck. All of those things, again, burnout's complicated. All those things kind of fit together and can lead to very similar symptoms. And I think what we've done is we've given people some really practical things to go and think through. And so that's the challenge, right? Take 10 minutes this week.
That's right.
Do that check-in, go through that list. Go through some of those questions. Plenty of things to go Google. Use ChatGPT to help with whatever it is, and just start to go through and think through that stuff. And I bet, again, you're gonna be able to label some things and find some clarity, and that clarity will be inspiring and hopeful. So it's not going to solve the problem with 10 minutes, but at least you can get closer and closer to figuring out exactly what it is and start moving in the right direction.
And just to be clear, I am very happy with the Ford Explorer. So if you end up buying a rental car that you rented, it doesn't mean that it's going to be all bad. You might actually enjoy it.
I love it. The Nissan Murano. I fall in love with it every time, but I'm probably not going to buy one. But anyway, all right, Clay. Great to be with you.
Adam.
Well, that's all we got for today's episode of the How to Lead podcast. You can always reach out to us via email. We can be reached at info@howtolead.work. That's info@howtolead.work. Every episode is mixed and edited by the team over at Sound of a Rose. You can learn more about them at soundofarose.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you again next time.